Okay, so we have here the 5 equations for trigonometric functions. So just remember, conditional if the equation has exact value for the variable, and if both sides of the equation are the same, then that is identity. Ayan. Take note of that. Okay, let's wait for the rest. So your classmates are still sending their answers and some stopped already. Okay, let's now have this. So I already explained some of our circular functions last week. So meron na kayong idea. And even when you were in grade 10, trigonometric ratios were already taught to you. So you know which are reciprocals and which are not. Okay. So sine x is equal to 1/2. So if we have here sine x and we have a value here and we're solving for x, you know this, sine x 1/2, saan pa magiging 1 to? So sa ilalim, I need to fold this. So magiging square root of 1 over 2. Yung finger, yung left finger, left hand trick natin kanina. So therefore, when you do that, 1/2 will be equal to this one when you fold it, and that's 30 degrees. So in here, there's a value for x, and that is x is equal to 30. So therefore, that is conditional or identity. Type your answer in the chat box, please. Is it identity or conditional? Type it in the chat box. It's conditional. Very good. Kasi there's exact value for x. Okay. Now, cotangent x is equal to cosine x over sine x. Now, di ba, if you can remember last week, tangent x is the same as sine x over cosine x. Can you remember that? But since tangent is the reciprocal of cotangent, when you get the reciprocal of their values, it will be cosine x over sine x. So therefore, cotangent x is just the same as cosine x over sine x. Therefore, we can rewrite this as cosine x over sine x is equal to cosine x over sine x, because cotangent x is just the same as this. So therefore, what is that? Conditional or identity? Identity. Very good. That's identity. Okay, kasi parehong-pareho lang yung magiging sagot. And whatever you do here, you cannot solve for the value of x kasi walang ibang other given. But they are just identities. Okay? Now, this one, you know this. Sine x is equal to 1 over cosecant x. Reciprocal functions. Is this check or wrong? Is sine x the reciprocal of cosecant x? Yes or no? It's yes. So therefore, sine x is just the same as 1 over cosecant x. Identity or conditional? It's identity. Okay, very good. I hope you can see the difference between the identity and the conditional. What about this? Cosine 45 is equal to x. Cosine of 45 is equal to x. Can you solve for the value of x here? Yes or no? Type your answer in the chat box, please. Can you solve for the value of x here? Cosine of 45, yes. Left hand finger, 0, 30, 45. 45, fold ko si 45. Cosine are the ones on top. So therefore, it says in our left hand trick, we have here, there. So we have here, this is equal to the square root of the number of fingers up, that's square root of 2 over 2. That's the value of it. Correct. Very good. So if you study the left hand trick without the unit circle, you can identify the values. So see? So therefore, conditional or identity, I or C, type it in the chat box. It's conditional. Very good. Kasi meron siyang exact value for your x. And finally, cotangent x is equal to 1 over tangent x. Is it identity or conditional? Identity. Kasi this cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. So it is showed here na reciprocal niya yung cotangent. So they are just the same. So this is identity. Let me see. Kaway-kaway. Raise of hands. If you got the 5 items correctly. C-I-I, C-I. Raise your hands if you got the answers correctly, whether or not you type them in the chat box or not. As long as your answers are correct, raise your hands. Let me see. Okay. Very good. Okay, that's good. Do you have questions or concerns before we move on? Okay, lower your hands now. Naglo-loading pa po yung utak ko. O, kaya niya yan. Don't worry. We will do it slowly but surely. Okay. Why am I giving so much emphasis about the difference between the conditional and identity? This is for you to be clarified about the difference between the two. Kasi I can just simply present to you the different trigonometric identities. But if you do not know where the concept of identities is really coming from, then the next process is the next process will be really confusing for you. So yun yung dahilan kung bakit inuulit-ulit ko yung difference ng conditional sa identity. Okay? Please take note of that. Okay, there is a question, a concern here. Sir, pwede pong itry yung let's try this one, B? Sure. Let's try this number 1, letter B. Okay, this is our given. So we have x plus 1 times x minus 1 is equal to x times x plus 1 minus x minus 1. Okay, so let's do the FOIL method here. Ready? Binomial to binomial. First, x squared, outer, negative x, inner, plus x, last, minus 1. Okay? Is equal to distributive property. We will have x squared plus x minus x minus 1. Okay. I left it that way kasi it's a minus. Since it's a subtraction, if there's a subtraction, don't simply remove the parentheses because the answers will be wrong if you just remove the parentheses and the operation is minus. Okay, let's continue. So we have here combined like terms. These are like terms and negative x plus x is just 0. So we have here x squared minus 1. Okay, is equal to. So we have here x squared plus x. Okay, now this is the context here. We need to distribute this negative to the terms inside the parentheses kasi it's a negative 1. There's a negative 1 outside and negative 1 is not written anymore. Okay? Okay. So therefore, let's distribute this. We will have negative x. Distribute negative 1, that's plus 1. Okay? And so we will now have here x squared minus 1 is equal to, this will be canceled. We have here x squared plus 1. And so what will we do here? We just have to distribute. Do it transpose. So we will have here x squared minus x squared is equal to, when we transpose this will become 1 plus 1. And this will be what? This will be 0. So 0 is equal to 2. So, okay, this type of equation resulting to this one, is it a conditional identity or a different equation? What do you think is the answer? Is it identity, conditional, or a different equation? Okay, the answer here is this is neither. This is neither. This is neither conditional nor identity. Why? Because there's no value for x, so it's not conditional, and it's neither identity because they are not the same. So therefore, what happens here, this is a false equation. Meaning, there is something wrong with the equation. Maybe there is a typographical error here, which should have made the -1 here positive. If this became positive, okay, ito yung type, I believe it became a false equation because of this error. Nandito yung error natin. So correcting that error, this will become, let's just remove this. Okay. Correcting that error. Okay, yeah. It must be a typographical error. Kasi if in the keto correction, it is identity, it must be a typographical error. And this is the error. This is the error. Take note of it. Why? Because when we solve this, x squared minus 1 is equal to x squared. So therefore, this when we distribute this plus x minus x, distributing -1 with +1, it becomes -1. Ayun. So canceling out that out, that becomes x squared minus 1 is equal to x squared minus 1. Ayun. Then this becomes identity equation. And that must be the purpose of this problem in the keto correction if it is identity. Okay, please take note of that. It's a correction. This must be +1, x plus 1 instead of x minus 1. It's a correction. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm happy you are finding and noticing all these things because it simply means you are really learning the process. In short, tinitingnan nyo talaga yung mga sinosolve ninyo. And I really appreciate this effort because it becomes a learning environment. We get to see if we are really following the process and we are learning the correct one. Very good. Now, having this correction in mind, if x minus 1 will become x plus 1, then the result will become identity. Okay? Take note of that. So if that's x plus 1, it will never be a false equation anymore because you will already have an answer for that. Okay? Kindly show a reaction if up to that part, everything is understood and clarified. Let me see. Show a reaction, please. Okay. Thank you so much. Very good. Now, I understand if for some, everything is still loading and everything is still sinking in. That's normal because right now, we will be learning the identities. Eto na. We need to learn these identities because this will guide us in the process. Okay. For now, I will allow you to have a copy of these identities. And you already know this, actually. We don't have to make a new discussion for this because you know this already. So the first 3 types of identities are the reciprocal identities. You know them. We've been discussing this since last last grade level and last week as well. The reciprocal identities. Kung ano lang po yung kabaliktaran ng bawat function, trigonometric function, those are the reciprocal identities. Okay? What are those? You know them. Sige nga. Without focusing on our copy on the side. Let me remove it para lamang mas makapag-focus tayo because we know this already. This is just a reiteration of the concepts. Okay? So we have sine theta. Actually, theta serves as the variable here. It can be theta or it can be other variable like x. So no problem kung theta ang nakalagay or x. If you will be asked, what do you prefer? X or theta? Type your answer in the chat box, please. X or theta? Ang gusto nyo, mas gusto ninyo? Theta po. O, sige, kayong bahala. But can you type it in the chat box? Yun lang magiging problema. Okay. So whichever you like in your paper, if you prefer theta, it's okay. If you prefer X, no problem. They are just the same. Okay? So, again, theta or X are just the variables for this. And they are the unknowns for these identities. Okay. So, let's try theta kasi we've been using X na since the start. Sin theta, cosine theta, tangent theta. We also have cosecant theta. You know them already. Secant theta. And the cotangent theta. Okay. What is, kindly make yourself active in the chat box. What is the reciprocal of sine? What's the reciprocal of sine? Type your answer in the chat box, please. What's the reciprocal of sine? Okay, it's 1 over sine. It's cosecant. Okay, the reciprocal of sine is cosecant. So therefore, that is 1 over cosecant theta. Okay, kasi yung kabaligtaran niya, cosecant theta. Can you follow? Oh, what about in the cosine? O, sige nga, what is its reciprocal identity? Type it in the chat box. What is its reciprocal identity? I want it with 1 over. Lagyan ng 1 over. Okay, ayun. Si Christian nakahanap ng theta symbol. Very good. What is the kabaligtaran of cosine? The kabaligtaran of cosine, the reciprocal identity of cosine is 1 over, it's not sine, but it is secant theta. Okay. Got it? What about tangent? What is the reciprocal identity of tangent? You know it so well. Type your answer in the chat box, please. Okay, good. So we have 1 over the cotangent theta. Great. What about for the cosecant? What is its reciprocal identity? What's the reciprocal identity of cosecant? Type it in the chat box, please. Okay, good. Type it, please. Everybody, please type. Okay, that is 1. It's not just 1 over sine, huh? If your answer is 1 over sine, it will be a big wrong. Why? You need to have the variable. In this case, that's theta. Okay. What about secant theta? What is its reciprocal identity? What is its reciprocal identity? Type it in the chat box. Very good. That's 1 over cosine theta. And finally, what about cotangent? What is its reciprocal identity? Okay, good. That's 1 over tangent theta. Perfect. Show a reaction if that part is clear to you. Oh, see, sabi ko naman sa inyo, dali-dali lang nito eh. That's it, yung kabaligtaran nila. And some still remembers and uses the trigonometric ratios pattern. So, towa, cho, siya, kao. Yan. Na yung magkakatapat na yan, sila yung mga magkaka-reciprocal. Sine and cosecant, cosine and secant, tangent and cotangent. Okay. So, katowa, cho, siya, kao. Okay? And you know that so well. Okay, so please remember the reciprocal identities. Let's move on with the other identities. You know this already. These were already presented to you last week. Kaya lang, last week, what was presented was only the tangent theta. Okay, let's now have our quotient identities. Game, quotient identities. Okay, and these are just two. So they are tangent theta. Let me make it darker. Tangent theta and the cotangent theta. You know this already. I discussed this to you last week. When we say tangent, what is or what are the functions that we will be dividing to get its value? What are the two functions, two basic trigonometric functions that we need to divide to get the value for the tangent? Okay, your classmates are typing their answers in the chat box. Very good. So that is correct. Okay. So sine 0 daw. Kunwari, yung 0 po kunwari theta. Very good. Okay, sige. Noted on that. So that's correct. Tangent is always sine theta over cosine theta. Sine over cosine, that's tangent always. Okay? And for the cotangent theta, syempre dahil since tangent and cotangent are reciprocal functions, what do you think now is the quotient identity for cotangent? It's the kabaligtaran of tangent. That's correct. Very good. And that is cosine theta over sine theta. Okay, and these are all identities. So, got it? Can you follow? Okay, kumbaga we're just getting to know this quotient identity, the different identities muna by now. So let me see, show a reaction if the quotient identities are clear to you. Dalawa lang yan. Those are only the two quotient identities. Let me see. Reactions, please. Okay, tinatami itong malilyo. Okay, kaya yan. Thank you. So meron ng mga nahihilo, kaya yan. Let's continue. We're just discussing our identities. Wala pa yung real discussion. We're still in the introduction part. Okay, and of course, finally, the Pythagorean identities. Pythagorean. We already discussed this last week, especially with the Pythagorean. Pero this time, these are special Pythagorean identities. Okay? So we have here sine and cosine are always present. So we have here sine. This time they are squared. Kasi di ba, if you can remember Pythagorean identity, this actually came from the circular function. Wherein, if you can remember the reference angle, ayan, can you follow? So, considering that there is a triangle, a Pythagorean, considering that there is a Cartesian plane there, when we get the square of sine theta plus the cosine squared theta, this will always be equal to 1. Okay, that's the first Pythagorean identity. Okay, now there are other two Pythagorean identities naman, and those are tangent theta, the tangent squared theta, plus 1 is equal to secant squared theta. And the other one naman is 1 plus cotangent squared theta is equal to cosecant squared theta. Okay. So, this of all those basic or the fundamental trigonometric identities, the Pythagorean identities are somewhat new to you. Though they are not new, they are somewhat as compared to the reciprocal identities and quotient identities. The Pythagorean theory identities are the new ones for you. Okay, so game na. Those are now the different identities. Later on, tuturuan ko kayo kung paano pasimplihan yung buhay na to by the use of hexagonal pattern. Okay? Pero mamaya na lang 'yon. What do you want to learn first? The simplifying trigonometric expressions or yung pattern po muna? Simplifying na po or pattern po muna? Kindly type it in the chat box, please. Let me see the feel of the body. Okay. Hindi pwedeng none of the above. Pwede po, pass na lang yung dalawa. Pwede naman. Kaya lang di mo sila matututunan. Okay. One more. Kasi naglalaban si simplifying at saka si patterns. One more. Okay. Simplifying muna po. And that wins the decision. Okay. So, simplifying muna. Okay. So, this time, I will be showing to you now these functions. Ayan. Para may kopya tayo as we do the simplifying. Okay. So, let's have this. So, the first step one of the activities or one of the things that we will be doing is expressing trigonometric expressions as a single function. Express trigonometric expressions as a single function. And we will do this. We will be able to do this by using the different identities. Okay, let's have this one first. So we have tangent x, cosecant x. Okay, let me just see if there are two functions written together as one and there's no operation indicated, what operation is involved between the two functions. If two functions are written together without the written operation, what operation really is happening between the two of them? Is it addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? It's correct. That's correct. That's multiplication. Good. All right. It's just the same as the variables. For example, we have 2x. 2 and x are being multiplied. xy, x and y are being multiplied. Okay? So that's just to let us be refreshed about that. Okay, game. Simulan na natin. So let's express tangent and cosecant, tangent x, cosecant x into a single function. Now, using our reciprocal, quotient, and Pythagorean identities, let's just be creative. Let's transform these functions into their reciprocal or quotient identities until we come up with a single function. Sige nga, please suggest. Sige nga, please suggest. Type in the chat box. What do you think should be done with tangent and what should be done with cosecant? What do you think should be done with tangent and what should be done with cosecant? Look at the reciprocal identities, quotient identities. For the Pythagorean, wag na lang muna kasi wala namang squared sa mga given. So better not use the Pythagorean. So reciprocal and quotient identities can be used to simplify this. Yes, let's expand them. Correct. Oh, how will we hayaan na lang po natin sila para wala nang mahirapan? That can't be. Kasi sila nahihirapan ngayon. Remember our school trust. We give the best of who we are to help those in need. And these trigonometric expressions are in need of us right now. Hirap na sila kasi punong-pulo sila ng problema. Napaka-komplikado ng buhay nila. They want to be simplified. Yun. Okay? Okay. There are suggestions here now. Sir, sa tangent and cotangent po, paano malalaman kung gagamitin quotient or reciprocal? Okay. Sige. Ito na. This will answer your question. If you will look at this, the tangent can be rewritten as quotient identity. This can be rewritten as quotient identity. What is the quotient identity for tangent? Type your answer in the chat box, please. Type your answer in the chat box. What's the quotient identity for tangent? Look at the copy at the side of the screen. Correct. Is it tangent? Tangent is, okay, it's sine x. X tayo. We are using x instead of theta. So therefore, this can be written as sine x over cosine x. Can you follow? Very good. Times. What about cosecant x? This can be rewritten into what identity? Of course, cosecant is not part of the quotient identity. Therefore, you will just go and look after the reciprocal identities. Correct. So what's the reciprocal identity for cosecant x? What's the reciprocal identity for cosecant x? Type your answer in the chat box, please. Correct. That's 1 over sine x. So let's rewrite that to 1 over sine x. Ayan, lumiliwanag ang buhay. Let's have a short, quick review about multiplying fractions. Halimbawa, meron tayo ditong x over 2 times 1 over x. Okay, what will we do to simplify x over 2 times 1 over x?